Hello everybody and welcome back to AMW Productions. Today I thought I'd sit down and rewatch the Resurgence, which has been my most successful film so far, amassing at this point I think 295,000 views as I film this video. And so I thought I'd just watch it and do a little commentary on it like, filmmakers do. To explain a few things during filming and like how I did a few of the things. Because there's a few little camera tricks and stuff that I'd love to, share with people. And then I'll talk about my plans for the next film and, how I'm going to improve on that. So, without further ado, I'm going to hit play. I'll try not to pause it too much as I go. But yeah, let's go. Here we go. AMW Productions. I still love that logo. So yeah, of course, I had to add in, this is the newest version, so I added in all the new AMW production stuff, like the folding production was created by me and all that. I'm still doing the thing where people can send me their content and I'll put it on and then we share the revenue, but I'm focusing more on my own stuff at the moment, just because I haven't really had any submissions. So yeah, here we go. So, I believe this is when we have the first little title card, there we go. So I tried to make this film, unlike The Cursed Entity, I tried to make this film as much like an original Paranormal Activity film as possible, even down to the cards at the beginning. Because you could literally, that is literally the original Paramount one, just replaced with AMW Productions, and obviously mine and Dan's names. Here we go. So this is obviously the start of the film. Adam's just turned on his lovely new camera, which is actually a Pixel 2 XL phone. You can actually see it in the reflection in the mirror. As he approaches it, you'll see. There it is, a white one. And there's my lovely Jack and Jones hoodie. So this was, I was trying to go with low budget for this one. And I think I did quite well with it, considering I was able to get a couple of actors in as well. I think that did go quite well. For whatever reason, I'm just testing the audio by whacking a door into it. Again, my script writing wasn't as good at this point, but the fact that this film's done really well gives me confidence that the new one will go really well. And so, if a lot of people were confused by this bit, my character is basically a tech YouTuber that, build PCs and stuff and repairs them. I don't think I conveyed that very well with the script writing, because he's testing a camera and then all of a sudden he's filming himself taking apart a Dell computer. What I thought I was going to do was actually kind of recreate this film as my next film and kind of do it better. But then I realised this was kind of a remake of The Cursed Entity already. I didn't want to do another remake because it would just get boring. If I was just doing a remake and it was a bit better every single time, I'd rather actually continue the story and just go with what I've got. And so, yeah, I tried a little jump scare there with holding the little ram stick up to the camera and the kind of quick cut. Like nice little curly whirly bag there as well. And so the way I did the door knocking, there wasn't actually anyone knocking on the door. What I did was I placed the camera outside of filming in the room where I was filming that scene, and then I went downstairs and knocked on the door so it sounded right from where the camera was, and then I added in the sound effect afterwards, so it sounded like somebody was knocking on the door and the perspective was all right because the camera was far enough away. I think this was just a box from an Amazon delivery I had, I can't remember, but it came in quite handy. This prop I used here for the camera is actually my Panasonic M5 that I believe I got on eBay for like 50 quid. So there you go. It's in mint condition as well. I've still got it. I'm planning on using that as a prop in the new one as well. Now, in case some people aren't aware, all the VHS footage captured, all the VHS style footage captured in the film was not captured on that camera, because that would have been an absolute pain in the arse to actually record onto a VHS tape and then copy that. And obviously, yeah, that would not have been a fun process. So I actually used an app on my phone that makes things look like VHS. And yeah, here we go. So this was actually edited in the new version, the 5 days later thing. This this new version was actually cut down compared to the original. What confuses me is most of the views are still going to the original version, even though the new one is up, and I think it has a better thumbnail. Most of the people, that video is still getting like 2,000 views in every 48 hours. But the new one is like building up. It's got like 150 views in the last 48 hours as I record this. But yeah, I'm hoping the new version will pick up a little bit more, because the original one has all the cards the title cards of where I missed out the scenes. This version doesn't. This is the perfected version. As you can see here, this is me testing that. Now, a lot of people were confused, actually. If I just pause this and go back a second, about the September 25th, 1988, a lot of people thought I was actually trying to make... A lot of people thought this film was set in 1988, and they were like, yeah, but you've got a smartphone and stuff. This film is not set in 1988. This September 25th, 1988 is an Easter egg to Paranormal Activity 3. I believe what I did was September 25th, 1988, I think was either the last day or the day after the Paranormal Activity 3 film ended in terms of when it was set. I think it was the day after or the same day that they were killed. And that was when the camera was turned off. And what this is implying is basically this is the same camera that they used in that film that somehow got to me. Again, with the camera turning up, I didn't really explain that very well. I'm sure in a future one, maybe even in this new one, because the script hasn't even finished yet, I can explain why the camera appeared the way it did. But basically, that camera was supposed to be the same one as Paranormal Activity 3, and that's why it kept the date. Just in case, because I know a lot of people kind of missed that, didn't understand why it was 1988, but it was basically because the camera time wouldn't change itself. It's something from the 80s. It doesn't have a battery to keep the time, especially it wouldn't after that long. So that's kind of explaining what that was. Now this scene right here was actually this was an interesting one. This was the first proper camera trick that I did, other than the door knock. This was the first visual one. A lot of my family have seen this and said, how the hell did you do that? And I will explain how I did that. It's actually quite a simple trick. So you see me walking off here, and what's happening now is the camera is actually fading into another video very, very slowly, so you don't notice. And I'm actually behind the white wall on the left. I'm behind it. And how I did the door was I put my belt under it, and the buckle was underneath the back of the door, and I basically pulled slowly from the other side, shutting the door. And then I got up, walked back upstairs, the video faded back over, and then it looks like I've just walked back downstairs and the door's moved on its own. A lot of people didn't get that. I can even demonstrate, if you'd like, of all the camera tricks I did in my film. I can do that as a separate video if you'd like. I'd love to help anybody that's trying to develop their own skills. But yeah, this stuff was kind of self-discovered by me, little tricks. Now this scene is relatively unchanged. I don't think I've actually done anything to this scene. This was originally the first scene in the film where you see paranormal stuff happen. Now, a lot of people seem to actually think this is a real Paranormal Activity film, which I'm flattered by. They're like, some people have said, please post more of the Paranormal Activity films. This is not a real Paranormal Activity film. This is a fan-made production. And I'm flattered that a lot of people have said that, because it gives me confidence that the way I've set it out to be as faithful to the Paranormal Activity films as possible has actually worked. And it's worked so well that people actually think it's a real one. The only thing, of course, letting it down is the budget. But if I had a big enough budget, if Paramount came over to me and said, look, we want another Paranormal Activity film. We've seen your style. Can you do this for us? Here's your budget. I reckon I could create a Paranormal Activity film with a good script that is, equally as good as the ones that are out now, especially the original ones that could, follow on. And I think I've got the skills, but it's just, I don't have the budget, and that's my problem, and that's why I'm trying to make more films to kind of put myself out there. So yeah, this was another interesting bit. So there is actually nothing visual about this scene at all. It is only audio. This is only, there you go. So this is only sounds added in afterwards, which did make this quite interesting. A lot of what I think Paranormal Activity is literally just sound. I just prefer the kind of psychological, the psychological part where you don't actually see what's going on, but you just know. And that cut right there was a deliberate jump scare, like they do in some of the Paranormal Activity films. I decided to smash the cutlery as loudly as possible, but the way I cut it, it just seemed like it could be natural. And there, here you go. So, in case people didn't get this, what I basically did, what my character's doing, is just setting up the camera just to test it, to see if it works. This was really the only way back then I could figure out how to write this camera into the story, because the problem is with a limited budget, getting the setting first is right. Like, for example, the first Paranormal Activity, Mika buys this camera and so he's showing it off to Katie. Second one, they have CCTV in this massive house and they have loads of actors. Third one starts off with a birthday party, which is why they're filming. Fourth one, I can't actually remember what they were doing. And fifth one, they have a GoPro. And then the sixth one, they obviously have all the, the CGI and they have the special camera. So to do this, to find a reason for me to be filming with no budget and barely any actors was very, very difficult. But I think I did okay with it. And now it should just get theoretically easier now that I'm doing a sequel, because I already have the setting. What I might even do is kind of do a remake of this later on. Maybe when I've made like 2 or 3 more films, I might do a remake of this one so it fits in a little bit better. And yeah, of course. So what's going on here? This was another camera trick. So the receipt's in the bowl. Obviously, I'm there. I push that. That's a pretty obvious one. But what happens next did confuse a lot of people as to how I actually did it. So you'll see in a moment that the receipts or the piece of paper in the bowl actually appear to start moving on their own, like very frantically. And the way I did that was I recorded the audio of the room as it was, just the ambient audio, and I recorded the sound of me crumpling up pieces of paper. Then I used a hairdryer, blew the receipts around in the bowl, and then put it a bit closer so they fell out of the bowl, cut that audio completely, leaving just the video, put the ambience over it, and then put the sound of the crumpling paper over that. So it literally just sounds like they are shuffling about, and then, in a silent room. And that's how I did that. And I think that actually went really well. I think that's actually one of the parts of this film that I'm most proud of. Has to be that, because I think that's one of the most clever camera tricks I've done. Minus the door, obviously, earlier. But again, what I find is when you have a limited budget, you have to get very clever about how you do stuff. And I was basically just trying to improvise the entire time of this film. And I think a lot of it worked. And here we go. So, in my opinion, I think this should have probably been night 1. Or at least it should have had a title card saying, like, the date. Because it's happening at night. So, basically what's happening here is me and Alfie. Oh, and there goes the coat. So, me and Alfie, who is basically my YouTube manager kind of thing, are having a talk about how we're doing the YouTube stuff. And that kind of fitted in with the setting. Little stutter from me there as well. So obviously the coat's fallen down. This is again me testing the VHS camera, although that isn't directly explained, but I think that's implied quite easily. To get everything else done first now. And then there's a bang from downstairs. I tried to do that as best as I could. The way I actually did that was I filmed basically where the camera was on the desk. I went downstairs, took the softest thing I could, and just like a mop kind of thing, and literally just prodded the ceiling downstairs, creating a kind of thud noise that the camera could hear, a really bassy thud, and that created that noise. And then I was able to put that in, literally put that in afterwards in post edit, and so it kind of sounded like a bang coming from downstairs. And obviously, I discovered the coat's fallen down. So I do a bit of investigation here. And this is kind of when the film starts moving, I would say. That sound, I'm just not proud of at all. I don't know if you heard that. I'll just play that again. The way I jump back, it just doesn't sound right. It's supposed to be the sound of somebody like hitting the glass, but I don't think I did it anywhere near loud enough. And obviously my reaction is a little bit meh. But I think, yeah, I think there are some things that I could learn from after this film, and there are things that I'm going to improve on in the next one. The next one's going to be so much better than this, by the way. It's going to be so much better. It's going to be even more faithful to, especially Paranormal Activity 3. and even Paranormal Activity 6 with like that kind of VHS camera effect. I've managed to replicate the exact camera timer that they have in those films with like the retro kind of AM like thing at the bottom, like in the bottom right corner. And that's what I'm going to be using for the VHS cameras in that film. Now, obviously in this scene, I'm talking to Alfie about what I saw on the camera while unloading the dishwasher, because why not? Now, again, this is like hard to clarify why on earth I'd be filming myself unloading the dishwasher and talking to Alfie, but I think it can be implied that at this point, because weird stuff was going on, I was just keeping the camera rolling. Or sorry, my character was just keeping the camera rolling, you know, just in case I captured something. And that's kind of what I'm going to clarify a bit better in the new one. The new one, yeah, the new one's going to be interesting. I think it will surprise a lot of people on the direction I go with it, because it does involve me. And it's going to be similar, and yet quite a lot different. And yeah, you may notice the fan. It doesn't actually have a cover on the front. If you look on here, that fan actually doesn't have a cover on it at all. This was a summer where I think we broke a fan. Or I broke the blades on a fan and we had to swap them over, and then I don't think I could be asked to put the cover back on, so we just had it like that, like really dangerous. But obviously we take care of our health and safety. I wouldn't worry too much about that. I don't know what the film explanation would be, and then you see in this shot the cover's back on it. I think I noticed that the cover wasn't on it. I chose not to reshoot, but yeah, the cover's back on the fan. Yeah, interesting. Now this is the proper night one. This was what my entire script was leading up to when I was writing it. This was what I was trying to get to, and this is by far my favourite part of making these films, is literally just the nights, because I get to have so much fun experimenting. I'm like, okay, what can I do this night? What can the demon do? And I genuinely love doing it. It's so much fun. Now, the room obviously isn't blue. I've actually added a blue filter onto the digital camera, as it is in the film, basically to match the colouring of both the original Paranormal Activity and Paranormal Activity 2 at night, when, you know, you kind of have the blue tint to the camera, to kind of imply night vision. Now, I'm not implying that here, but I think it does look quite good. And this was, again, supposed to be as faithful to those films as possible. So I think in this scene, I think if I just turn my own volume up, yeah, so you can hear the kind of high-pitched noises in the background. That is something I've borrowed from Paranormal Activity 2, especially the scene with the TV. I think the sister in that film is lying on the sofa, asleep, and then the telly starts making weird noise, and you just hear this high pitched noise, and that is something I'm trying to like implement into mine as well, to imply that there's obviously something going on. There's a presence. Now, I would like to do it better another time, but I think I did it quite well in this one. Now, you may notice the lamp just flickered. The lamp didn't actually flicker. All I did was just cut the video to black a couple of times very rapidly, so it just looks like the lamp is flickering, and I basically faded it in and out as well very rapidly, so it looks like the light is dropping out and coming back in. And then you've got the sound of the knife dropping in the kitchen, which my character goes and investigates in a moment. Now, the way I did this, actually, you'll be surprised to know that this was actually filmed during the day. If I just pause this a second, this was midday. And the way I actually did this was, first of all, obviously you can't see behind the camera. Now, behind the curtain, I actually rammed like every pillow and every duvet of the house in front of the blinds between the curtains. So there was no light through, and then obviously I turned the lamp on, so it kind of drowned out any of the tiny amounts of light you could see. And so it actually creates this dark, it actually makes the room look pitch black, other than the light. And I had to think about it, like, when I started watching this, I think I watched this again about 6 months ago, or something like that. And I was like, yeah, this was filmed at night, of course it was. And then I realised, no, it wasn't. And that is how I do this perfect cut to 6 o'clock, where the camera's in exactly the same place, everything's the same. And now you notice how you can see the light through the curtains as well. And that is literally because I took everything out of the curtains. So obviously the positions of the curtains might be slightly different, but everything's exactly the same. And what I was essentially trying to do was replicate Paranormal Activity 1 when I think it's the first night or something, and it whizzes forward to about 6 o'clock. I obviously couldn't do that with this because of the budget. And obviously I wouldn't actually sit there and just film for 3-4 hours. And so I just did a cut, but I think that worked pretty well. And obviously my character comes out the door. There he is, all tired. Nice stripy socks as well, I've got to say. And yeah, there you go. And it's very bright. But it looked like it was done at night before, which was another camera trick. So here we go. And then obviously my character films the knife on the floor, and you know. And I believe my character and Dan's character also look back on this footage later on. So yeah, I think for night one, I wanted to keep it as calm as possible. I didn't want to just go guns blazing immediately. That kind of happened later. Again, I had to be careful with the budget because I couldn't do too much. And there I am with my absolutely messy hair. I didn't really take much care of actually making myself look particularly the best part. But I want to thank a lot of people because I have received a lot of compliments for my acting skills. Now, I just want to point out, before I started doing this filmmaking thing, I had never acted before. I did a play I did a Romeo and Juliet play in year 5 when I was about, I don't know how old, 7 or 8 maybe a bit older. And that was it. And yeah, so I think, yeah, I just want to say thanks to those people that have actually complimented my acting style. I do appreciate that. That's very nice. And yeah, and there you go. So we kind of addressed that there, but I didn't explain, like, because obviously I don't know where the cameras come from. I don't know it's come from bloody Santa Rosa, California in 1988. So, you know what I mean. And yeah, so this is us reviewing the footage. This I felt like putting this in because it gave a better kind of idea of what Dan was doing. Like, it made more sense to him for him to actually look at what I'd been doing and captured before he just went straight in with all the equipment and stuff. And yeah, I think that went quite well. And yeah, oh yeah, of course, I completely forgot. You can hear him running up the stairs as well. Of course you can. Yeah, that's right. Thud, thud, thud. Now that was actually just me thudding up and down, but yeah, I think that worked quite well. I mean, that's something you don't really need a budget for. Nice messy towels on there on the oven. And yeah, so this is when Dan comes in and obviously investigates the cupboard because, you know, it's a little bit weird in there. I think we go back to this later on as well and just see. And that is the famous line from the trailer. Oh yeah, that was the final trailer. He said that. I put that in. There we go. So that's Dan's first appearance. Dan, lovely guy. I'm very grateful that he actually wanted to play a part in this film because I'd have been pretty much screwed otherwise. It'd have just been like the first one again. And of course, credit to Alfie as well, who didn't actually appear in person, but on like the phone calls and stuff, he was really, really good. And so yeah, massive credits to you guys if you're watching this. And yeah, they're really good. And you know, they made this film what it was, and I'm forever grateful for that. And I'm hoping Dan is able to come back and do the second film, because that'll be really good. You'll see how that fits in eventually. And here you go. So trick with the door again. This one is more easily explained. I could be under the table. But yeah, I'll leave that to your speculation of how I did that. And yeah, it moves back again. Now, the problem was, I find in the actual Paranormal Activity films, they dub in noises, so you can basically hear everything that's going on. Like if a door moves, you can hear it squeak and all sorts. In real life on a camera, you cannot hear that. But because I wanted to make this as much like a Paranormal Activity as possible and as engaging as possible, I actually filmed myself like making a door squeak and added that in afterwards, just to make more sense, because you couldn't possibly hear those sounds, especially like in Paranormal Activity 2 when you hear like the creaking of the basement door open. You wouldn't hear that from a CCTV camera that far away. But I just think it does make it more engaging. And oh yeah, and there you go. Even the light switching. There you go. So if I was on the floor, how did I do that? Because the light switch is behind the wall, up above the bins, so you'd have to see me to be able to do that. So how did I do that? I'll leave that for the comments. No, I'm joking. I'll explain it. Basically, it was another fade over. So I was on the floor. I opened and shut the door. Then video faded over, and then I turned on and off the light, and that was it. It's just a nice little camera trick. Now this one I'm not particularly proud of. When I find the growl bit, that I'm proud of that. But this bit, when I'm filming VHS on a VHS camera, or supposed to be, the two filters don't really work well together. You can barely see what's going on the screen. So it does make it quite difficult to work out what that is. And also, for some reason, this one was in black and white. I don't know why I filmed this one in a black and white mode. But yeah, it is what it is. And this is obviously when I find the growl. And yeah, that was an interesting thing to do in Vegas Pro. That would take far too long to explain, so I'm not going to. I'll probably make a separate video when I do my camera tricks and explain them and all that, on how I did that.
Whoa.
Yeah, and obviously I discovered that. Whoa. And then you can hear the growl louder and louder the more I do it. And yeah, that just shows off my amazing Vegas Pro skills.
What? Is that you?
Is that you? There you go. That's the noise. Now, I think in real life, you'd be shitting yourself at this point. If you heard that on your recording, you would be absolutely terrified. You would leave. But as is the meta in Paranormal Activity, hear weird stuff, just carry on. And yes, that's what my character does. Now we're heading to night 4 now. Now, for some reason, this one has like a more... This one and night 7 seems to just have a really like dark, dingy appearance. Especially in the VHS camera, it seems like really eerie and like black and white on the VHS camera. Which wasn't the case on the other ones, but yeah. This one, if you remember this scene, this is when the drawings appear on the piece of paper by the table. All I did with that was I literally just scribbled on a piece of paper, filmed the audio of that, and then dubbed it over, so it sounded like something was scribbling on the table. And again, you may notice that the lamp at the top, the light at the top, the lampshade actually starts swinging by itself. I did that with a hairdryer as well, same as the receipts in the bowl. But I think I needed something a bit more powerful, because the receipts the receipts were paper. This was a glass lampshade, and I was actually doing it from about twice the distance. So that is it. That is as much as I could get it to swing. I wanted that thing to be moving. And yeah, it just didn't really move. But it does the trick. I mean, you can see it's moving, hopefully. I'm hoping none of you missed that when you first watched it. Because yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if you did, to be honest. But yeah. And I think we're back now, and then this is when you hear the scribbling. And I made the VHS effect go a little bit, like, go over the top there, to imply that there was something going on, like, and there was a powerful force affecting it, and because obviously VHS uses, I believe, magnets to record, and so I wanted to, make that. But anyway, yeah, so you see the bowl on the floor, and then obviously these scribbles with the permanent marker, and the paper slightly ripped. These were actually, if you see the words at the bottom, that is an identical reproduction of the scratches in the basement door from Paranormal Activity 2 later on in the film. And I copied that as best as I could. And then obviously I added some devilish symbols as well. I mean, there's a pentagram that looks absolutely rubbish, which isn't like lined up at all. But, you could say a demon drew it, but it is what it is. But yeah, and then the Illuminati symbol and stuff like that. Yeah, stuff I just looked up online. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. I think I literally destroyed that piece of paper afterwards, just in case I had summoned anything in real life, because obviously that wouldn't be good. And yeah, this is the scene. This was quite an interesting one, actually. This was with the drawers in the kitchen. I basically had them fly open, but obviously I didn't really have the resources to be able to do that on the camera, like with strings or whatever. So I had to do it off camera. For some reason, my character's outside, obviously investigating stuff, or maybe putting something in the recycle bin or something like that. And then he comes back in. Very interestingly, he comes back in and then discovers obviously what's happened in the kitchen. Here he goes. Look at my hair. Wow. I can't believe this film. I was filming this basically 2 years ago now. It seems crazy, but I was. I just can't believe it's been 2 years and there still hasn't been another one. Coming soon, don't worry. And yeah, you see them fly open. There you go, like that. I wish I could have had them fly open on camera. That would have been so good. But again, I don't have the resources or skill, I would say, yet to do that. I'm sure I could figure out a way. And then sound of a chair moving. And I think it's Alfie, who's my manager. I don't actually think in this edit Alfie's name was mentioned until this point. So a lot of people will probably have no idea who the hell Alfie is. I'm basically talking about the manager guy, who would usually be popping in and saying hello. And obviously I'm thinking he's come in and hasn't told me yet. So I think he's messing about because I've been talking about the ghost stuff. But yeah, it obviously wasn't Alfie. Here we go. So yeah, night 5. I think this one is bordering on probably the one I'm most proud of in terms of the nights. I think this one and maybe night 12 I'm proud of most because of what I was able to achieve. This is when you first see something proper on the camera. And I wanted to really go for it with this one. So yeah, you'll see in a minute. So actually, one thing I was disappointed with off camera, well, it is actually on the camera, but it's so dark you can't see it, and that kind of annoyed me. On the left side of the camera in the dining room, which was the previous camera, there is like this Buddha ornament with like loads of bells on it, and I blew that with the hairdryer as well, and it obviously would start moving, but you can't actually see it on the final edit with the filter and stuff because it was just too dark. And so that was disappointing. But, oh well. I think what comes up easily made up for that. So nothing happens on this camera, I don't think. I think maybe the door opens and the light comes on in the distance, but you can't actually see the light, I don't think. Which obviously makes that interesting. But, yeah, you'll see in a moment. You'll see in a moment. If you haven't seen the film before, you'll see in a moment. If you have seen the film, you'll know exactly what's coming. But yeah, again, if you haven't seen this film, why are you watching my commentary first? Honestly, go and watch the film because my commentary will ruin everything. There you go. Little jump scare there of the radio turning on. And obviously I can hear that from downstairs. Now that was originally not radio static, that sound. I'll explain in a second, but now you can see obviously the shadow on the left side of the screen. The figure just stood there, slightly moving. And then you'll see in a moment, when I rush in and turn that light on, and obviously the fake night vision effect turns off, it just vanishes. And that was easily, I just faded it out. And it was literally just a PNG of a figure that I put in and then just faded out when I turned the light on. Which also implies that the ghost can only be seen on night vision as well, which is interesting, which is something I'm going to use for my new film as well. But with that radio, that was originally like a creepy 1940s song that I had playing, but I figured just the static would work better, so I overlapped it. And obviously Dan's back now. And then I give him another tour of the house and basically what's been going on. A nice little cereal box there. Now I did film this across several different days as well, so things do change in the house, which I think helps it make a lot more sense. If it was just filmed over a day, but it was set over like 2 weeks and nothing moved, this film would make no sense. But yeah, I'm glad some stuff did move. I included these scenes because I wanted to make it feel as natural as possible. And me and Dan obviously tried our best. And I think we did quite a good job overall. I do feel quite bad for Dan though, because the script was very loose. And I was kind of like, so yeah, we want to say this stuff, but just kind of improvise at the same time. So like with him checking out the light switch, that was all improvised. And I'm really grateful for him to that because it just made it seem that much more real. Like if he had just kind of gone, oh, you didn't turn it on. Okay, anyway, it just wouldn't have felt right because he's obviously a paranormal investigator. There's the iMac on the desk and everything, which has actually changed since earlier on in the film. You may have noticed that I had a really old white Mac in the corner.
I'll show you what it was like. It was kind of going this.
What on earth?
Okay, so that was a lot of force then. Yeah. So are you sure?
AMW Productions. Is this an editing mistake?
No. Absolutely.
Why does it say AMW Productions in the middle of the film? Yeah, okay, that was an unintentional editing mistake there.
Yeah, or why?
That was improvised as well. I felt so bad for saying that. I was suddenly like, why? Which wasn't in the script. And this was another camera trick. You'll see in a moment, thing come past the camera. Bang! Shadow goes past. And it slightly rippled the camera as well. That was edited afterwards. To imply that the camera had moved a little bit. But I wanted to edit this as well, so it felt like a Paranormal Activity, like with the cuts in it as well, like we were investigating. So yeah, even if it wasn't like making a Paranormal Activity film, even if I could just get an acting job as part of it, I think I'd do pretty well with like my style. A lot of people have said like my natural acting style is good, and again, I'm very grateful for that. So yeah, it'd be good either to, you know, have a part in writing one, you know, directing one maybe, or even just playing a part in one would be amazing. And that's definitely something I want to get into. So yeah, that's why I'm hoping this movie gets even more exposure and then the new one comes out as well. And yeah, I think that's basically the end of Dan's, I think, the second time he comes. Yeah, this was cut. I originally had Dan mention that the clock had come from Moore Park, California, which was, if you don't know, haven't seen the film, where Paranormal Activity 3 actually ended. That was at the grandma's house. So we're basically implying that he's basically implying that the clock came from there originally, which is why this is all happening. Now, if you hadn't seen Paranormal Activity 3, you wouldn't get that anyway, so I decided to just cut it out. But I'll have more of a close link to Paranormal Activity 3 in the new one, hopefully, once the script is done. And you see the light bulb explode. That obviously didn't explode. I just increased the brightness for very rapidly for a second, and then just put it down. And then added the sound effect of the light exploding. And that worked quite well. And then this is like my first time walking around at night when it's dark, which I want to do a bit more of in the new film because I just think it's a lot more creepy because you can barely see anything of what's going on. And yeah, this is when this film does start to kick off a little bit. Like, this is when the activity starts going up and up and up. And I want to do that even more in the new one. But yeah, so you can see obviously the VHS camera there, which wasn't actually filming that. That was just it's just put there as a prop. This was all filmed on my Pixel 2. And yeah, you go in the kitchen. Now this was something that I actually took from the Cursed Entity, what's coming up, with the bang on the window. So you'll see me, I go back to the camera and have a little look and just see. And that little, I don't know if you saw, there was like an orb on the camera then. That was unintentional. That was completely unintentional. I think that was just a bit of dust. But it just appears. And that was a bit weird. And so I just kind of went with it, and it kind of fits in with the film. Like, there's a presence. Nice little caffeine-free Coke there. There we go. And yeah, so this is when I got up to the window. And this was basically taken from The Cursed Entity, which is my original film. But it was done with a bit more jazz. I mean, look at that. That was like proper cutlery sounds as well, moving, because of how hard that impact was.
Sorry to call you so late.
And then, yeah, this is my... And you'll notice that the clock face is open here. This is supposed to be... It's supposed to be implied that I don't know that that's open. Yeah, this was like my great acting moment when I was trying so hard to sound natural with like the upset stuff. I was like, oh, please, 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 I'll be going tomorrow. My acting's better now. I've just had a lot of practice, but yeah. But the clock face is open, and my character doesn't know. The way I've got it in my head is my character doesn't know, and that the demon's obviously done that. And so, yeah. And then later on, I find out the clock isn't working, and that's supposed to be how that's happened. Now, what I may do is release a director's cut of the film with basically the original version, everything uncut as it originally was, with the deleted scenes in it as well. It'll probably be a good 20 minutes longer, 15, probably 20 minutes longer. But if you want to see that, if you want to see everything original like how it was, I'd love to do that. I'll put that up on YouTube. I'll probably do that anyway, because, you know, I am the director and it will be my cut, so... Anyway, so Dan's here on his third visit after I've come back from my little trip. Now that falling down was a miracle. We do not even know how that happened. I actually think there is something in my house. We were just filming, and that magazine just fell down on its own. And I remember, as that happened, looking at Dan from behind the camera, just with my mouth wide open, like, oh my god, that just happened. And it looks like, because nobody's going to be able to explain how I did that. And yeah, that just happened, and we still don't know to this day how that happened. That magazine had been sat on that chair for probably 2-3 days, and it just suddenly fell down as we were filming. And yeah, so there's a bit more story here about the clock and everything, which I want to elaborate a bit more on the new film. Now this was another interesting bit. So me and Dan actually split off here. Dan stays upstairs, I go downstairs, and I set up 2 cameras, and basically I have Dan set up the camera in the hallway so to film himself what he's doing. Yeah. Now this isn't supposed to be set at night, obviously, because of the curtains and stuff. It's basically just because I've just got back, so all the stuff is shut still. I don't want anyone thinking like I was pretending it was night when it actually wasn't. So don't worry. It's not meant to be night. Don't worry. It's meant to be like 3 in the afternoon. Oh yeah, there you go. 3:41. So yeah. So this was Dan setting up the camera there, and he turns off the light, and obviously the night vision kicks in.
Are you still here?
Yeah, and then he starts questioning the ghost or the demon or whatever, and then I start opening the curtains and stuff, and I'm unpacking my stuff. And I think I can't remember how I filmed this. I think, oh yeah, and there you go. So you got the camera speeding up here as well. Basically, how I did that, he wasn't actually stood there for an hour, nearly. He was, basically, I asked him to basically move slightly, really quickly on the spot. Really quickly. Sorry, I lost my train of thought because I was watching, so I spotted something else as well. Yeah, I basically had him moving really quickly, and then I sped it up by 2, so it looks like he's moving really quickly, and then just and then made it like it was fast forwarded like 50 minutes, and it works. And then obviously these are supposed to be, the shot of downstairs and the shot of upstairs is supposed to be happening at the same time. They were actually filmed at different times, and then I just blended it together. And then obviously Dan's like, no, I'm not having any of this shit. He's done. He is absolutely done. Yeah, and there you go, because he basically got possessed for a full 50 minutes. And then he just goes. And I don't believe he comes back. I don't think you see him again. And there was a scene that I actually got rid of where he basically films himself talking to the camera and basically saying there is something seriously wrong at that house, and then obviously the rest of the film happens. I think I'll put that in the director's cut. And yeah, did you ever think you'd get jump scared by a Mac startup sound? Well, you did. I bet you did when you first watched it. And then obviously this is me setting up the rotating camera. Obviously that would have been a bit fast, but it actually, yeah, you can see. There you go. Look at that. Now, this was an original idea from me, basically building on the oscillating camera from Paranormal Activity 3, but it literally just allowed me to film both rooms from the doorway in the middle. And there you go. And there it is. Night 10. This was the first proper big jump scare that I think will have got a lot of people. And you may notice as well, if you've seen the old Paranormal Activity films, a lot of even the times were copied from the Paranormal Activity films just to give it the same feel. Like there's a night in Paranormal Activity 3 where it's 4:02 a.m. and I just wanted to kind of copy that. So it just felt, I don't know, you just had that kind of, I don't know, it's complicated, but I just wanted to, like little Easter eggs to the films. But yeah, you'll see, yeah, so the bathroom light starts to flicker, but that is not by far the end of this at all. This builds up very quickly this night. So this is when you start seeing the figure properly. You see it once in night 5 and then not again until night 10, and then this is when it really starts like showing itself, and then yeah, this is when it starts picking up. And this is unfortunately the problem. A lot of people nowadays, especially young people, unfortunately, attention span, because of things like YouTube Shorts and stuff, isn't very long. So people will watch this, they'll watch the first 5 minutes, nothing happens, and so they just click off and say it's rubbish. And that's a lot of what's happened. They don't watch it to this far, where stuff starts really happening. And a lot of the time, the problem is they've never seen a Paranormal Activity either. So they just, you know, they don't know what they're... Like, obviously in Paranormal Activity, it builds up over time. Whereas, yeah, a lot of people don't know that because they haven't seen them. So then they watch this and they're like, oh, nothing's happening. This is supposed to be a horror film. This is rubbish. That was interesting editing, I will say. I took a similar sound effect from one of the Paranormal Activity films, dubbed it over, made it really loud, and basically had the PNG of the shadow shooting at the camera, and then I physically knocked the camera over while filming, so it looked like it had been bashed over by the ghost, demon, whatever. And obviously you could see it in that shot a minute ago, or a second ago. And yeah, so there you go. And that is basically the end of night 10, because I believe it's now just disappeared. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, that's night 10. And yeah, this is sort of getting towards the end of the film now. This is the last time during the film you actually see the daytime. And obviously this is me finding out that the clock isn't working anymore. Which obviously is explained by the clock face being open after night 7. I don't know what happened with this one. I don't think I could get Alfie to film himself on the phone, so I just had to kind of improvise and just film something. Which did work. I think it worked quite well anyway. And this is the scene where I decide to do the big investigation of my own, which obviously for my character is not a good idea. I should have left it to Dan, or done it while Dan was in the house, or even asked Dan to do it to see if that was a good idea. But you'll see the camera does cut forward to about 6 p.m. in a moment. Oh yeah, there you go. Now Matt falls off, and I'm like, whoa, yeah, stuff's going on now. So yeah. It's it's interesting. It's just basic stuff really that's designed to scare you, and it's that psychological kind of part. I think, to be honest, the VHS effect ruined it a little bit because you would miss a lot of the details, and I think it's a bit distracting. There you go. So it suddenly cuts to 6:16. I should have probably done that a little bit more smoothly, but it is what it is. And this is when I decided to start questioning the ghost, because obviously the reason I'm doing it in the cupboard is because that's where most of the stuff has happened. Like, it was cold, you heard scratches and stuff. I should have really done it by the clock. I think that would have worked better and would have made more sense for the story, but that can be saved for the next one. And obviously it's a bit awkward me just shooting in the cupboard as well. I couldn't really focus the camera or anything. It's just kind of yellow because of the light. And I'd argue this is probably the second biggest jump scare. I think the third biggest jump scare was probably the knock on the window. There you go. Amazing. Power. Look at that. Yeah, that was literally just me moving the shadow across in Vegas Pro, but added with the sound effect, it looked pretty good, I'd say. And now the final scene in the film, night 12. And this was obviously where I was a bit disappointed with how I ended it, because I couldn't really figure out any other way I could properly do it. So I'm going to leave that to the sequel. But yeah, so you may notice I've swapped, my character's basically swapped around the cameras, so now the digital camera's on the moving thingy-majiggy, whatever it's called. And yeah, so yeah, you can see, you'll be able to see in a minute actually, this scene was actually, I think probably one of the ones I was most excited to do because of what I did. So there's obviously a thunderstorm going on. There wasn't a thunderstorm going on, by the way, in the original. And there you go, yeah, so you can see the shadow now moving up the stairs towards where I am. So it starts off in the living room, then it goes into here, and then all of a sudden it just vanishes. And I get up. And now Adam is possessed. And he very slowly opens that door. And then this was another shot that I was proud of. This involved me taking a sound from Paranormal Activity 3 where the camera gets sped up and you kind of hear like the VHS kind of sound of it speeding up, like a VCR kind of speeding up noise. And you'll see, there you go, added the sound in, and I'm just still stood there up at the top of the stairs. And then I go back. And then that is pretty much the last footage you properly see. Now I did add the found VHS tapes at the end. One of those is no longer canon because it doesn't fit in with the new film. The third one, where like Dan's spirit talks to me, is no longer canon because Dan's character is actually alive in the new one, or it will be alive in the new one. So, yeah, There you go. So that should explain that. And then this is just the shot. This is just the final shot. And it ends there, basically. The following VHS tape was found in a church 7 kilometers away on September 31st, 2018. It has not been dismodified in any way. Viewer discretion is advised. So yeah, this was me basically adding extra lore to the film.
Never actually thought about putting the camera on this.
There you go. So this is meant to be set earlier in the film, and it was just a tape found afterwards.
Get the whole room in one shot. That's quite cool.
So this was taken from the 3rd VHS tape, but I cut out all the other stuff. And then the weird transition between the VHS. And now suddenly it's nighttime and the house is trashed and the lamp's knocked over and the light in the hall's on and everything. And I think this was the only one I put in. The only VHS tape I put in, actually, but I didn't put in all of it. And suddenly you see the dining room light turn on as the camera pans. And then suddenly you see a hand appear at the door. The first tape where I'm testing the camera and you can see the messages coming up on the screen, like help me and stuff. Basically, my character is possessed. And the only way he can communicate is by manipulating the VHS tapes. And so this tape has been manipulated. So obviously, yeah, this is happening later on. And especially in the second one when you see, like, save him and, like, all that. And, like, I'm still at the top of the stairs and it's like a jump scare and stuff. You can see, yeah. That's basically been manipulated by my possessed character as a plea for help. And then all of that will be explained in the new film. So Adam was last sighted leaving his house on September 25th, 2018. His whereabouts remain unknown. The last footage from his digital camera shows an unknown person switching it off. All prior footage was recovered at the house, which has since been locked down for police investigation. And then a nice loud cut there, and that is the film. That is the film. And I am hoping that you enjoyed it. I'm hoping you enjoyed my commentary. I'm sure it... Well, I'm sure it added a little bit, but not too much, I can't imagine. But yeah, just... I thought it would be useful to kind of give you guys my insight into, how I did it. Now, these credits were identically copied from the Paranormal Activity film, so it's obviously based on the film Paranormal Activity by Oren Peli. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce that. And then Adam Williams, that's me. Although my name in the film is Adam Wilson, that's my character. Daniel Andreasen is Daniel Alderman in the film. And then Alfie was the guy on the phone. I think this is, AMW Productions presents Paranormal Activity, The Resurgence. There you go. So it was, if you watch an original Paranormal Activity film, you'll see that the credits are exactly the same, in the same format. And then obviously, next time it will be Paranormal Activity Awakening. AMW Productions 2022. There you go. So that is the film. Hopefully you enjoyed my commentary. I may have rambled on for a bit too long. I've been rambling for an hour. Hopefully that was something you enjoyed. There you go. The Resurgence 2 coming 2023. No. No. It is not going to be called The Resurgence 2 anymore. It's going to be called Awakening. The new film is called Paranormal Activity Awakening, for the record. And that will hopefully be coming this year, but it might stretch into next year. But I want it to be done by Halloween this year, so then it might come out on Halloween, which is still a long way away. But yeah, so that was Paranormal Activity, The Resurgence, and my commentary. Hopefully my insight was useful. If you want to create your own film and, some of the camera tricks used. Again, all I want to say is, if you want to create something, do it. Like, it doesn't matter if you've got no budget. The fact that you have an interest is enough. And it was the same as I did. My content has evolved. I started literally just setting up a camera and putting night 1 on it and like moving a rug or something, or like a blanket, and I was like, yeah, that's Paranormal Activity. Trust me, if you start now, you will not regret it. Your content will evolve so quickly. You will learn things on your own. Like, they have all these videos and stuff for filmmakers and stuff. Trust me, if you're doing found footage, you don't need them. You can learn stuff on your own. Yes, it's useful to watch things like mine and other fan-made stuff, and even the original Paranormal Activity films to, like, you know, gain an insight on how to do certain things. But most of the skill, trust me, you can learn yourself. Vegas Pro, I learned myself. Camera tricks, I learned myself. It's doable. Trust me, you can do it. So, yeah. Anyway, so that is going to wrap this one up. Paranormal Activity, The Cursed Entity, voiceover thingy-majiggy will be out soon. Commentary will be out soon. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in a bit.